Good morning, students. I am Raman Gupta, Assistant Professor in Government College Bara, and I am going to teach you about the introduction of one of the leading poets of the Victorian age, and the poet we are going to discuss is G.M. Hopkins or Gerard Manley Hopkins. So let's start. Gerard Manley Hopkins was an English poet and a Jesuit priest. He was born on 28 July 1844 and died on 8 June 1889, whose posthumous fame established him among the leading Victorian poets. His manipulation of prosody, particular his concept of sprung rhythm. So this is a keyword, and Hopkins is known for his sprung rhythm, established him as an innovative writer of verse, as did his technique of praising God through vivid use of imagery and nature. Only after his death did Robert Bridges begin to publish a few of Hopkins' mature poems in anthologies, hoping to prepare the way for wider acceptance of the style. So, he himself could not publish his work, and Robert Bridges, who was one of his friends, he did this. By 1930, his work was recognized as one of the most original literary accomplishments of his century. It had a marked influence on such leading 20th century poets as T.S. Eliot, Dylan Thomas, W.H. Auden, Stephen Spender, and Cecil Day Lewis. So let's study his early life and family. One thing I want to tell you, students, that before starting a poem, before starting to read a poem, it's very important to study about the poet, because only then we can know about the facts and the environment or the background of the poet in which he composed that poem. So it's very important, so don't miss it. Gerard Manley Hopkins was born in Stratford, Essex. Now it is in Greater London. As the eldest of probably 9 children to Manley and Catherine Hopkins, née Smith, he was christened at the Anglican Church of St. John, Stratford. His father founded a marine insurance firm and at one time served as Hawaiian Consul General in London. He was also for a time church warden at St. John at Hampstead. His grandfather was the physician John Sim Smith, a university colleague of John Keats and close friend of the eccentric philanthropist Anne Thoughts. One of his uncles was Charles Gordon Hopkins, a politician of the Hawaiian Kingdom. As a poet, Hopkins' father published works including A Philosopher's Stone and other poems. His father was also a poet. So we'll study only the important facts, not all these which are written over here. Hopkins' initial ambition was to be a painter. Initially, he wanted to be a painter. He would continue to sketch throughout his life and was inspired as an adult by the work of John Ruskin and the Pre-Raphaelites. Hopkins became a skilled draftsman. He found his early training in visual art supported his later work as a poet. His siblings were much inspired by language, religion, and the creative arts. Millicent joined an Anglican sisterhood. Hopkins moved his family to Hampstead in 1852, near where John Keats had lived 30 years before, and close to the green spaces of Hampstead Heath. When he was 10 years old, Gerard was sent to board at Highgate School. While studying Keats' poetry, he wrote the Escorial, 1860, his earliest extant poem. Here he practiced early attempts at asceticism. He once argued that most people drank more liquids than they really needed and bet that he could go without drinking for a week. He persisted until his tongue was black and he collapsed at drill. On another occasion, he abstained from salt for a week. Among his teachers at Highgate was Richard Watson Dixon, who became an enduring friend and correspondent. Of the older pupils, Hopkins recalls in his boarding house the poet Philip Stanhope Worsley won the Newdigate Prize. So let's study about his poetry. The Sonnet of Desolation. According to John Bailey, all his life Hopkins was haunted by the sense of personal bankruptcy and impotence. He was impotent. This was a haunting fact of his life. The straining of time's inch with no more to spend, a sense of inadequacy. So this was a haunting fact about his life which always tortured him throughout his life, though he tried to come out of this, but yet it could not be possible for him. Toward the end of his life, Hopkins suffered several long bouts of depression. His terrible sonnets struggle with problems of religious doubt. He described them to Bridges as the thin gleanings of a long weary while. Thou art indeed just, Lord, 1889, echoes in asking why the wicked prosper. It reflects the exasperation of a faithful servant who feels he has been neglected and is addressed to a divine person, Sir, capable of hearing the complaint but seemingly unwilling to listen. Hopkins uses parched roots as a metaphor for despair. The image of the poet's astringent from God figures in I wake and feel and fell of dark, not day. I wake and feel the fell of dark, not day. in which he describes lying awake before dawn, likening his prayers to dead letters sent to dearest him that lives, alas, away. The opening line recalls Lamentations. He had led me and brought me into darkness, but not into light. No worse, there is none, and carrion, comfort are also counted among the terrible sonnets. He is known for his sprung rhythm. Pied Beauty is one of his important and well-known poems. Much of Hopkins' historical importance has to do with the changes he brought to the form of poetry, which ran contrary to conventional ideas of meter. Prior to Hopkins, most Middle English and Modern English poetry was based on a rhythmic structure inherited from the Norman side of English literary heritage. This structure is based on repeating feet of 2 or 3 syllables. 2 or 3 syllables are repeated, with the stressed syllable falling in the same place on each repetition. Hopkins called this structure running rhythm, and although he wrote some of his early verse in running rhythm, he became fascinated with the older rhythmic structure of the Anglo-Saxon tradition of the Beowulf as the most famous example. Hopkins called his own rhythmic structure sprung rhythm. Sprung rhythm is structured around feet with a variable number of syllables, generally between 1 and 4 syllables per foot. 1 and 4 syllables per foot, with the stress always falling on the first syllable in a foot. It is similar to the rolling stresses of Robinson Jeffers, another poet who rejected conventional meter. Hopkins saw sprung rhythm as a way to escape the constraints of running rhythm, which he said inevitably pushed poetry written in it to become same and tame. In this way, Hopkins' sprung rhythm can be seen as anticipating much of free verse. So it was near free verse, the literary term free verse. His work has no great affinity with either of the contemporary Pre-Raphaelite and Neo-Romanticism schools, although he does share their descriptive love of nature, and he is often seen as a precursor to modernist poetry or as a bridge between the two poetic eras. So this is very important. I repeat it. Although he does share their descriptive love of nature, and he is often seen as a precursor to modernist poetry or as a bridge between the two poetic eras. So this is all about the major facts, important facts about the poet G.M. Hopkins. Well, this is very important, students, and I hope you will study it. I have also put some notes, PDF notes in the group also. I have dropped it, so you can study those notes also. And in the next video we'll start the poem written by G.M. Hopkins, which is prescribed in our syllabus. So thank you and have a nice day.